So let's talk about lesser discussed issues with this team um, for this year. So obviously, the defense is the one thing that stands out the most when we're talking about the Bulls, right? And for good reason. You know they were ranked 24th in points per game last year allowed and 12th in overall defensive rating. The 12th sticks out, and you think, okay, that's pretty good, but the 24th out of like what 30 teams is I don't know. I don't know if I could say that's good, but it's not good. So I have skepticism about their defense. But let's put that to the side, okay? Everybody talks about that. I want to talk about scoring and shooting. And you're like, what the fuck? What do you mean? They got DeMar DeRozan, they have Vooch, they have Zach LaVine. They don't need any to score. They got plenty of scoring in the starting lineup. And they got plenty of shooting in the starting lineup, too. Everybody in that starting lineup can shoot with the exception of DeRozan. But what about the bench? There's like nothing off the bench. And look, before you guys start listing people in the comments section, I can already, oh, what about this person? I don't care about low volume. I don't care about first or second year. I don't care. Okay? See, let's go take a look at some of these other teams, like a Cal Kuzma off of the Wizards. Can shoot 38, 39, 40% from three off the bench. I'm not saying that's his actual stats right now, but I know for a fact he can shoot that. He is more than capable of it. Who else? I'm trying to think of some other teams out there. The Lakers will they have Malik Monk off the bench? I don't know, but Malik Monk can shoot his ass off. Okay, got a guaranteed shooter, probably shoots like 5 or 6 threes a game or somewhere in that range, maybe. I don't know. Matter of fact, I think he shot 40%. You know, and I know I'm going all over the place with this, but follow me here. You know, even JJ Redick, not this past season, but the year before when he was coming off the bench, he was giving us like 14 to 17 points off of like 45% from three, right? And that was like 80% of what he shot was his threes, right? So you might say, we got Caruso, he shot 40% next to LeBron. But he only took like one or two a game. Hello? One or two shots a game. Well, but he still shot 40%. No, it's not enough. And I don't trust a lot of these unproven guys on the bench. Most of these guys are defensive pieces and athletic wings, okay? Fair enough. I got no issue with that. You might say, well, Marko Savanovic, look, he's a rookie, or at least a second year player. He was a stash and save, and they finally went ahead and signed him and did that whole thing this year. But has he played an NBA game? We got Nico Melli from the Pelicans as a 30-year-old off a rookie deal. He could shoot overseas. Could he shoot here? So I get summer league, okay, and I get that for like some of these other guys. But let's just be real. Kobe White is the best weapon we got off the bench, and he is a weapon. But Kobe White is 35% from three. That's going to be a place of need, people. Now, let me tell you what the front office did that was incredibly ingenious. These last couple contracts are like non-guarantees. If some team lets somebody go that we need, you just cut one of those guys, have a nice day, appreciate your service, and you get the guy you need. That's the good thing. They got three of those this year. So at any time, if someone gets cut, and they're a really good player, Bulls will be on the line immediately. Hey, we'd like to offer you such and such. But for right now, the emphasis is going to be on the starters. They're going to pull most of the weight. Go back and reference my video this morning. I was telling you guys about rotations. Notice I said Zach and DeRozan will almost always have to like split time on the court to maintain. Okay? And to a lesser degree, Lonzo and DeRozan for playmaking purposes. And don't get me wrong, I haven't mentioned Ayo. Again, he still falls into that rookie thing. I'm not putting him. I just don't trust young players like that. Okay, especially on teams trying to get into the playoffs. That's the one thing I agree with Stan on that I didn't necessarily. That a lot of people I don't think necessarily agreed with him on. Except he played Bledsoe when he probably should have played Nikhil, but I digress. They were out of the playoffs at that point. I think you could throw that philosophy out when you're out of the playoffs. But I digress. Put that to the side. So the bulk of the scoring and stuff is going to come from the starters. Now you may say, okay, wait a minute. That happens on most teams. Fair enough. But there are other teams out there that can get you shooting off the bench. You got a guy like a Landry Shamet coming off the bench can knock down threes. I mentioned guys like JJ, Patty Mills off the bench for Brooklyn. Okay, I'm not sure who's going to start at power forward for Brooklyn, but they may have Blake. Blake has become a pretty good three-point shooter over the last couple seasons. I'm not sure what he did last year, but I know like the year before, he was like right at like 37, 38. Okay, the Atlanta Hawks. So their starting lineup is probably going to be Trey Collins, DeAndre Hunter, Clint, and probably Bogdanovich. That means they got Kevin Huerter and Cam Reddish and Lou Williams off the bench. 3 guys. 3. The Lakers went and got an onslaught of shooters off their bench. Okay? So I'm saying this because we don't have any shooting. And that leads to another issue, right? When you're very starter-centric, injuries. If one of these guys gets hurt, it is going to be a problem. Now, we can make it off of one guy getting hurt. However, I'm going to tell y'all right now, and we better pray. If Nikola Vucevic gets hurt, can we still run and play? Yeah, we'll probably be better on defense. However, spacing's not going to be good anymore. We're going to depend on him for so much this year. If you go watch a lot of his highlights in Orlando, but even on the Bulls, there's a pick and roll situation or whatever, and the defense is focused on the ball. He just tends to get a lot of open shots. It's like they forget he exists. So, I mean, that's probably going to happen this year too. So he's going to kill it from 3. But what happens when you got a guy that you have to put out there who can't necessarily make threes? You got a situation like the Pelicans again. Only exception now is you got a great God-level shooter in Zach LaVine. Of course, you got Lonzo. And Pat Will, he shot 40% low attempts, but he should be better anyway this year. Better as in either taking more or better as in higher efficiency. Either way. So you got 3, but then you got DeRozan, who's like 25%, so he's not spacing the floor. And now you got someone else, another big. Now, if you play Marco there, if that actually translates, fine. We don't know yet. We have to see. But if you put somebody else there, where's your spacing? It's gone. That means they can kind of focus on D'ing you up better. The whole point of this team is to blitz you full of points. If that goes away, you got to change your play style. Now, I think this team can adapt. I really do. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't become harder if an injury occurs. We need one more guy. The Paul Millsap signing with Brooklyn hurt us for that reason. Okay? The Lard trade hurt us too in the fact that we didn't get anybody back that can actually shoot. Um, if we could have got a guy like Nader, I would have felt a whole lot more comfortable, or Maxi Kleber. I would have felt a whole lot more comfortable with the situation because now we got at least another shooter off the bench and we got another body at forward so we can kind of maybe make some stuff happen in a situation where it would normally happen. Now you're kind of skating on thin ice. And I said, I think 2 or 3 videos ago, I said the difference between the starters and the role players off the bench is pretty massive. Maybe not so much so for Lonzo to Caruso, and maybe not so much so from like Kobe to Zach, but everywhere else, it's not a question. There's a serious power drop off. And so, if we lost Zach for the season, knock on wood, if we get Kobe back, I'm like, okay, we can just put Kobe there. We can make this work. That's a lot of points we're going to miss and a lot of efficiency. But we can make that work. If we lost DeRozan for the season, I could slide Levine to the small forward, put Kobe there, and okay, we can make this work. Or, since we already don't have a shooter anyway, just take one of those guys off the bench, whoever's the best one, put them there, and say, okay, we can make that work. If we lose Lonzo, we got a ball handling Caruso or Ayo or Kobe. They may not be able to pass like Zoe, but you still got DeRozan who got you 7 assists. You can still make that work. If we lose Vooch, I'm sorry. We don't have anything close to a Vooch off the bench. Matter of fact, in the league, there's not a lot of Vooches. In general, that's a rare kind of player. Now, that doesn't mean Marco in the next 2 or 3 years will not morph to become something similar or be able to replicate some of what he can do. But we're not looking at 2 years into the future. We're talking about today. Again, even though this ain't wood, pretend it's wood, knock on wood, we don't want any injuries to happen. But again, let me switch it this way. Atlanta played the Knicks. Atlanta played Philly. And Atlanta played Milwaukee. All in the postseason. Even though they had some key injuries. DeAndre Hunter was gone for a while. Cam was gone. They were able to do a lot of damage because we just spaced the floor. Now, once they lost Trey, that was it. But when you have shooting, you can supplement for some stuff. When you don't have shooting, you can't. Now, you could say, okay, well, Jay Strokes, we can shift the mindset from let's go from playing shooting to playing hardcore defense. And that can work. That can work. However, you're going to have to come out of defense at some point and score because this is a scoring league. And if you can put up points, you're going to win. If all you do is put up points and don't play defense, Pelicans last year, you lose. If all you do is play defense, you might get into the playoffs, but you're still going to lose. New York Knicks. I'm just saying, you got to have a combination of both. The reason I led this video with the stats is I wanted it to all come back around. I gave you the points per game allowed, and I gave you the defensive rating. Okay? They could be a good defensive team, but that still don't mean you can't score on them. The Knicks were a good defensive team, and you couldn't score on them. Got them into the playoffs. But once they got to the playoffs, what happened? Immovable force, unstoppable object. Guess what happened? Offense won. I would argue the offense in this case was of a higher level than the defense, which makes sense. But it doesn't change the fact that that happened. So where are we at here? Bulls fans, or Zoe fans in general. We can sit here and talk about Zoe's playmaking. We can talk about how well these starters are. And all of those things can be true. I'm trying to bring y'all together because unlike the Pelicans, I don't want this to be Pels versus Zoe fans. We're all on the same page here, I would hope. The starters are fine, but the bench is not. We got Kobe, but we still need that guy off the bench. Now you might say, well, hey, Jahlil Okafor just got released. Maybe we should pick him up. Fuck it. He don't play defense like most of the team. The starters anyway. But he can go get you some buckets. Hey, that might work. But now we got like 4 or 5 centers. Still need a power forward. So where are we at here? People. Heavy is the head that bears the crown. The starters are good. Possibly great even. But it is going to be a weary task as the season wanes when you can't sit out for long to get breaks because you got to come back in and carry too much of the burden. The reason I had that video this morning is because I also wanted to segue into this later. The rotation, as it seems, you're going to have to keep guys in and out, in and out. If they're running and playing at pace, look, I don't know if you guys have ever run. I was in the military, okay? Running was damn near a daily thing or every other day thing. That shit is tiring and fatiguing on the body. It is draining. And in the NBA, when you're playing a pro sport, and you're like, that's exhausting on the body. But if we're talking about you're putting the ball in Lonzo's hands and this team wants to play with speed or at pace, a high pace, that adds up. Injuries can and will happen. So, these guys are going to have to carry the bulk of the burden and endure that physically. What do you think is going to happen? Injuries. They need scoring off the bench. Now, if you want to say they don't need shooting and scoring is shooting, I don't care. I'm not here to play semantics with you guys. They need scoring and shooting off the bench. Okay? However you want to define it, they need it. But they need a quality player off the bench. Someone that can come in and can take some burden off of some of our guys. Because, and this is to the point with Pat Will. Yes, he may be young, but you don't want him getting beaten up and bruised every damn night. Somebody that can come in and soak up some of those minutes, because I'm going to tell you right now, Pat Will might be the most important player on this team before it's all said and done. Because of what he's going to have to do. And I know I didn't mention him being lost, but if you got a guy who you're depending on to play defense, rebound, shoot, pass off of the gravity of the other players, it's, first of all, to find a guy that can do all of that is hard. Young player, old player, whatever. But if they got to take a beating every night, and then you got your undersized there, so if they got a bench full of power forwards that's bulky and stuff, and they're just crushing you, you know, your bench unit, you're going to have to get them back in the game. You're asking some of these guys to potentially log a lot of minutes. That adds up. So, let's Celebrate the team, but think about this realistically. I still say 60 wins is the team ceiling. And I'm still looking for this team to get 60 wins. Now, this is probably, like, let me not say probably, this is definitely not the logical side. Well, it's still logical. But this is just me having high hopes for this team, high expectations. Realistically, they may be a 47 or 50 win team. But let me tell you something. If you're a 47 or 50 win team, one injury could be the difference between being a fourth or fifth seed and being in a playing game or out of the playoffs, depending on who that player is and how long they were out. At least if you're a 60 win team, you could probably sacrifice one guy for the entire season and still be okay. But this team, we don't know yet because they haven't played. That's all I wanted to say. I hope you guys have a good day. Tell me what you think. Peace.